family honor or traditions. FGM, or female genital mutilation, is one such attempt to literally carve out women's sexuality out of their bodies. Female genital mutilation comprises all procedures that involve altering or injuring the female genitalia for non-medical reasons and is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights, the health, and the integrity of girls and women. Our today's event is in commemoration of the International Day of Zero Tolerance to FGM, which is observed around the world on every February 6th. It's time to introduce you to our panelists. We have today Dr. Halida Hanumaktar, a global health expert, reproductive health epidemiologist, and a winner of the United Nations Population Award with an international career that also spans over 3 decades. She is a faculty member at the Center for Human Nutrition, Department of International Health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health in Maryland. We also have with us Oregon Legal, who has been working on sexual and gender-based violence related issues for the past 6 years. She started working as a volunteer on the issue of FGM for Fgm Is, a French organization dedicated to helping people affected by FGM, forced marriages, and other harmful traditional practices. She has been working on sexual and gender-based violence issues and as a volunteer at first, and then she moved to Sweden. She then carried on her work focusing on child prostitution with the Center CASA in Togo as a volunteer as well, and with Doctors Without Borders in Switzerland in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In spring last year, she moved to Mozambique, and she worked on child sexual abuse there. In October, she started working from ActionAid Sweden, and she is currently the coordinator of their program on FGM. Girls who undergo female genital mutilation face short-term complications such as severe pain, shock, excessive bleeding, infections, and difficulty in passing urine, as well as long-term consequences for their sexual and reproductive health. So we will hear from our guests, and later today, we will also be joined by Jamila Saeed Mose. She is also an activist who has been working on FGM for over 3 decades. Her work has made a significant difference in Somalia, Sweden, and worldwide. We'll talk more about her accomplishments once she joins us. And then for the time being, let's start with our guests who are here with us. I'll start with Oregon. I know that ActionAid has been working on the issue of FGM related trans-border issues. So it's not limited to certain countries. It happens in West Africa, even in Middle East, and then there's also incidents in Asia and Latin America. It continues to persist among immigrant population living in Western Europe, North America, Australia, and New Zealand, and also especially in Sweden, because there's a huge immigrant community there. So Oregon, if you could just share with us your experience working in the program as a coordinator.
Yeah, thank you, Shum, for your great question. So here at ActionAid, we try to push for FGM being seen as a transborder issue for several reasons. As you said, there is countries where the practice is done, but the affected countries are much more larger, and are all over continents. So that's the first point of why we think it should be transborder. Because as you said, here in Europe, in Sweden, it affects diaspora groups coming from other countries outside of Sweden. And for that reason, it's really important that on diplomatic level, the FGM is part of the diplomatic issues to be brought in, because if you want to protect the children, when they move from one country to the other, it's really important that this protection is carried on. Because even if those children, they live in Sweden, so far, the Ministry of Social Affairs haven't been seen any FGM performed in Sweden. So it means that the FGM is performed outside of Sweden. So if it's the Swedish government really wants to protect 100% those kids, it needs to put in place measure to be able to protect them also outside of the national borders. And for that, we need diplomatic cooperation. We also think that it's not only for Europe. As you said, ActionAid is working on FGM in different countries. And we also have, for example, especially I heard lately from our colleagues in ActionAid Senegal, who also have activities to fight against FGM. And they also face that sometimes the population, if they want to carry on FGM, they will cross the border to another country where it's still legal. So you can see that it's not only the Europe perspective that need to be transborder, it's in every country affected by FGM that show this transborder issue. This need to protection outside of the national borders. That's one point. And the second is also that if we really want to make the prevention, not the protection, the prevention part of FGM, which is before the immediate risk, you also need to create a awareness campaign together with the country from origin and the country where the people live, especially here in Europe. We see that because we need the attitude, the change of attitude on both sides if we really want it to be 100% effective. Because now, thanks to a lot of travel, it's great. Families are spread across continents. And as it's a thing that happen inside communities, inside families, we need everyone on board. And maybe not all the community and maybe not all the family lives in Sweden. So that's why we need a cooperation between the countries and between anti-FGM activists. So that's what we are trying to settle. That's our goal for this year, to try to work even more with our other colleagues of ActionAid working in other countries to try to build those bridges. So that's why we think it's important, if we really want to be effective, to see that outside of the borders, because people would travel.
I am aware that recently in UK, the police has created a separate unit that only deals with honor-related crime. So do you think if we had similar initiative from law and enforcement organizations, then it would also be very helpful?
I think you're right. The training on the special issue is key. We can see here in Sweden that from the last report from the Ministry of Social Affairs from last November, they say that there is this big issue of missing knowledge among professionals and especially among police forces. So I guess, of course, maybe if we create a special unit, it will bring knowledge. I don't know if we need to create those specified unit, but for sure what I can say is that we need to increase the knowledge. And specifically, I think maybe it's having a dedicated part of the police forces could be a way to make sure that at least some people have the knowledge, because it's key.
Let's say if I am a young girl who live in Sweden or in any other part of the world for that matter, and I have a possibility where I may be a victim of FGM from my family, and I cannot, of course, make them understand. I have nowhere to go. Do you have any such support initiative from ActionAid in Sweden? And I'm sure, like if ActionAid works all over the globe, I'm sure you have other countries working in that area too. So if you could just share how I can seek help in that situation.
So I can't speak for my other colleagues across Federation, but what I can say is that for now, ActionAid, we are more working on the prevention side. On FGM, we haven't have dispositive for the immediate risk, but there is already system in place. There is this national helpline for women held by NCK, which is a research and a clinic in Uppsala. And they have been mandated by the government through the FGM roadmap in 2018 to support this national helpline. And they are in charge of it. So it's with trained professionals. That's one thing I can say. If someone is at risk, there is also a passport that have been created by the Ministry of Social Affairs that parents can print and bring with them if they travel and they fear that they may be put at, if their daughters can be at risk. That could be also a way to try to show that FGM is not legal in Sweden and that they have this passport with them. We also heard about a very interesting, lately we have been hearing about a very interesting app called Mumking. It was developed in India, and it's an app that is more dedicated for teenagers to try to bring a difficult discussion in the family. So that's also one thing. And the final thing I would say also, if someone is at risk and is looking for help, of course there is, I mean, even if we don't have dedicated activities for immediate risk for FGM, they can contact, I think I can speak for everyone, any anti-FGM organization across Sweden, because it's not only ActionAid, there is great organization all across the countries with people who are trained on those matters and are ready to help. So I can say that they can also contact them, because if someone starts this journey of saying no first, it's an individual answer, it's an individual question they have to answer. And it can be very hard. It's always hard to stand for yourself, especially when you're a woman, because we have been educated to where it's easier to put someone else first than yourself. So we know how difficult it can be. Also because you're turning against your family, your community, and it's always harder to stand up against the people you love, because the sense of belonging is very important for any human. So for that, it can be really helpful also to have those organizations where you can turn and ask for help, because they have the right to claim for that help. And there is system in place if they're willing to take this path.
Thank you, Oregon. I'll come back to you once again afterwards. Now we have been joined by our other panelist, Jamila Said Mose, who has been working to fight FGM for over 3 decades now. Her work has made significant difference in Somalia, Sweden, and worldwide, as I've explained before. She became Director General of the Ministry of Women and Family Affairs in Somalia, as well as Vice Minister of the same ministry. She also has extensive experience working with civil society, as well as international organizations. So welcome, Jamila. We know that you're welcome. So we know that you have been working for quite some time. If for those who are not very familiar with the concept of FGM, it's not that common to hear about it in the media, and also in North America, people are not that aware. So if you could just explain for the audience what FGM is, that would be great.
Thank you very much for organizing this important event. First of all, I like to make a request. 4:45, I like to take 5 minutes, something like that, break for the prayer.
Sure.
And that question you asked me, it takes how long, it depends how much time that I have. I can talk 3 hours, 2 hours, as well as 5 minutes in a very short. So I don't know how much.
Just maybe we will have we just want the definition for now, and then I have other questions for you after that as well. So if you can just give a definition of what is the actual act of FGM, how it's done, what happens to the victims afterwards. If you could just give some
just a brief. Also, I like to mention here that I have been also working Sweden, the first national project that sponsored the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health, and the Gothenburg Council was implementing. And that project, we were working more than 10 years. And during that period also, we have initiated the European Network Against FGM. So in a short, and then the last 7 years, I'm working on this subject as a consultant, trainer, and mentor. So as we all know, FGM is a tradition, deeply rooted tradition, and it's more than 3,000 years old. As the historians also mentioned, that it has been started in Egypt during the pharaohs. And the number we were talking, it's a very big number, the prevalence, which my fellow countrymen, when I mentioned, they got surprised. It's almost 3.6 million every year, and over 200 million in general. And it is every 1 hour, 400 girls are subject on this tradition. And it's practiced by more than 30 countries of Africa, as well as some parts of Asia. And now it's a global issue that we are also working here in Europe and North America, everywhere, since many immigrants and refugees fled their countries and living in these countries in the Western world. And that's why it became a very important issue to work on this in order to provide proper health care those who has been affected, and also to prevent the young children's not to be circumcised or mutilated. It has too many difficulties and complications in short and long-term consequences. And those who have been circumcised are infants, children, youth, young women. And it is WHO described it 4 types of female circumcision or female genital mutilation. I remember when I was teenage and voluntarily working with the Somali women organizations when they attend late 80s in a conference in Nairobi, that many African women and worldwide women organizations attended, and they decided to call female genital mutilation, not female circumcision. Because when you say female circumcision and male circumcision, it's quite big difference. And women themselves decided this is not a circumcision, it's a mutilation, comparing to the male circumcision.
You're mutilating the body basically to take away the sexual organ. Yeah, and then many opponents and oppositionists from the African male groups who are saying, this phenomenon was backing up by the Western. And it's not the Western, it's among the women themselves. And then it was established Inter-African Committee, an organization who has been working more than 30 years
that Somalia became a member of that, and it was established in 1994. And the second conference, which they organize every 3 years, a conference, that time I attended in Addis Ababa. And that organization are member all these 30 countries, as well as the other Western countries and organizations working and involved on this subject. At the same time, Somalia is those countries who practice the most harmful type, which is type 3 inflation, or what they call pharaonic type. And it's almost 98%. 70s and 80s, it was very taboo issue to talk about FGM in Somalia. And those who first started were women who are working in the medical field. Beginning of the 90s, when I was also working with the women organizations as a young volunteer, it started that women can talk, and also mobilization and awareness. And then after we become a member of the Inter-African Committee, Somalia organized an international conference in 1988.
So in the time that you have been working, if you could just, I'm sure you have seen a lot of the harmful effects of, because I'm sure what the general audience would like to know, as you're saying, it's mutilation. So it's you're destroying the woman's body. So if you can share some of the harmful effects, why is it such a huge issue that we need to fight?
Yeah, since we called it a mutilation, and the complications and the harmfulness, it's a very huge, up to the girls during the operation, or in short, after the operation, died. And now in Somalia, I often travel every year, and every time I went there are cases, young girls died. So and then those who are survived get more complications, infections, infertility. Some of them have it very difficult to get married and have sex. When they become pregnant, they are very worried. And they're saying that Somali proverb says when the woman is pregnant, her grave is open and ready, so she may die, it means. So there was a poem Somali woman made, which is called Feminine Pain. And the feminine pain means the first pain is when circumcisions took place, and the first time that woman having sex, and the third one is delivering a baby. So this poem says, delivering a baby is a death and destruction for me. And this says the grandmother, it's only feminine pain. It's usual. It's a normal that every woman should go this pain. And this is a kind of tradition, and why and how and when circumcision took place is different into different countries. Some countries, they do first 7 days of the baby. And mostly what's common is from 5 to 14 years. Some people, they do when the girl is ready to get married, because they believe that they're saying that she can, the clitoris, because the clitoris is an evil organ. That's the description that they have. So we have to move because she can make the man impotent. And some of them, they do during the first pregnancy delivery time, that they believe that the clitoris may harm the baby during the birth, and that may cause the baby born may die or may become handicapped. And some also believe that she cannot control if she has the clitoris, her sexuality. So the whole issue comes after controlling the woman's sexuality.
So you think it probably has something to do more to do with the patriarchal culture, and I have even heard people referring to it as part of our religion, part of our tradition. No, you don't go there, you don't talk about it. So do you think it's justified that it's you can only blame religion and tradition?
Yeah, it is, though it is a very complex issue related in different ways of the tradition and culture. And sometimes when we make meetings and workshops, those who are for, they say, it's our tradition and it's okay, it's normal. And we don't have a problem with that. Some others says, yes, I have to do because of my religion. And the religion, when you explain to them, they wouldn't listen to you. They want to listen from the imam, from the religious leader. And who are the leading the religion? In every religion is men. And we have met and challenged them to talk to the people. When you meet and talk to them individual, they say, yeah, it's not a religion. Okay, I will organize a meeting of group. Can you tell them? Yes, and the last minute they cancel.
Because they don't want to dare talk about that. It's too much of a
recently, the Ministry of Women on Family Affairs, Somalia, has prepared legislative to get approved from the parliament, and they refuse, and then it become big issue within the social media. And many religious leaders and religious scholars were talking about, and they are saying, they are spreading a wrong message, saying infibulation, it's not good, but you have to do something. And this misleads the people and continues the continuation of the female circumcision. And some of them, they do infibulation, and they call it is what they call sunnah, which is type 1. And sometimes it's not excision, it is a infibulation after they cut everything and so again. So this is the challenge and hinder that still many African countries are having. The same thing in my experience here in Sweden. Also, we have that challenge among the religious groups. And still, Sweden, which is the first Western country who have a special law since 1982, still, we haven't succeeded this group, the religious groups, to approach and tell the communities that it's not religion. And it's right, it's not written even in the Quran. And that's a big challenge. And still now I met with different groups, professionals, as well as those who came from these countries. And still many of them, they believe, continuing. And the young generation that during the beginning of the 90s, when we started that project, the parents, we have been trained and met them, who has been changed, and their children who born here, who are now parents, did not continue.
So they're more aware of the harmful effects.
The old generations and the people who came here before 20 years ago. But those who came recently, the last 10 years, there's not too much things happening now, and many of them still, they believe, unfortunately.
Okay. So because of the legal restrictions, they cannot perform it, but they would given the opportunity. So when they take the girls outside of the country, right? Like Oregon was explaining earlier, she has worked in such situations and such scenarios. So maybe if you could share from your experience of working with the victims or survivors, to just a personal human story, so that audience can relate directly to the trauma that you have to go through.
There are two things, stories which is very successful stories, and stories which is very hard to heard. But in even Sweden, it's mostly possible that people travel other countries and do it and come back. During our trainings and seminars, we got some information that saying there are some people doing here in Sweden, but we don't have any proof. When you ask them details, you never get it. And those successful stories, in my experience, both in here, I take examples here in Sweden, women who are supporting and who continue FGM after they participated those discussions and they get more information, they realize it and they say, we will not continue. One of them, her daughter, which was 8 years old, and she has complications, urine complications. And the doctors suggested for reopening. And the mother refused it. After we discussed with her, and we have some medical nurse and health professionals, and showed them pictures, the differences and the complications and the risk that this girl can happen in her future life, that she may not have children and become infertility. She accepted, and she said, she gave the contest at doctors allowed to reopen, and she said, I will not do to my younger daughters. Even the men themselves, mostly we blame men, but in my experience, is the opposite somehow in such group, not all men, exceptional, the religious groups. We organize workshops and meetings and seminars, men and youth boys. And when they see and heard about the FGM, how they do, and the complications, they become very upset, very sad. And they said, look, Jamila, I didn't decide my daughter to be circumcised. I didn't knew when they circumcised. I was not present when they were circumcising. I was not informed what they were doing. It's her mother's decision. But if I knew the information I know now, I wouldn't allow anyone. And from now on, I'm going to stop and tell the others. So it shows that to me that men are lacking information and knowledge about this. And they haven't know any other things. Another experience in Somalia, when the Somali Women Organization organizing the conference, international conference in 1988, the chairperson, should get approval from the government. And the Council of Ministers laugh at her and say, You are calling all the delegations all around the world and inviting to talk about circumcision. Shame on you.
So this is still legal in Somalia?
Since we don't have law, since still people are circumcising, since still girls are dying, and those cases, even they didn't took to the court. What we're talking about Somalia, who has been having a civil war and the government institutions and everything in infrastructure collapsed. Even in Egypt, a doctor circumcised a girl and died in his hand, and he's free.
So now doctors are also participating in the process of genital mutilation?
Excuse me?
Now the doctors are also performing the mutilation?
Yes, everywhere.
Actually, like licensed doctors, medical
yes,
professionals?
Licensed doctors, nurses, midwives, and some of them advocating medicalization of the circumcision in such times. And they're saying, in order to avoid the death, in order to not to do the inflation, we can do. And we have a very hot debate and discussions, even in a conference in Somalia. And I met a very opposition and strong reactions when I said, no, zero tolerance. And medicalization is continuing, and the female genital mutilation.
I will come back to you again, Jamila. Now let's go to Dr. Halida Hanum. You have been working across the world as well, and you were earlier saying that you visited Ghana, and you have some experience working with the issue. So in UNFPA, according to one of their reports, just in the year 2022, there will be 4.2 million girls who will face a situation, or they'll be mutilated by this. So do you think it's what is the importance of dealing with this issue, especially in the light of the recent rise in radical right-wing thoughts, where people are trying to take back the little freedom we have earned for women in terms of their sexuality, their reproductive rights, and all of in that context, why do you think it's so important to talk about this and to fight against it?
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I was listening to Jamila, and I was thinking, if I was one of those girls, what would have happened to me? I'm a gynecologist also, and my mother was an obstetrician also, and I have seen people. You know, even a little perineal tear hurts a woman so much. She has problem in intercourse every time she goes to her husband. Now, when I think that and think of a baby girl and the girl, adolescent girl, and you mutilate her genital organ, it's so inhuman. And I'm repeating myself. And I picked up from Jamila that when you show them, you know, my language will change as I'm talking. It's not going to be a scientific or something. Sorry, when you talk about these things, you really become an advocate. You become a woman. You are not a man anymore, right, Jamila? That you are the victim. You feel like all the girls, I'm the victim like all the girls. Now, it's always the girls. It's always the women who are the victim. Right?
Yeah.
Weaker 50% of the society, of the population. And you want to keep them weaker so that you enjoy their weaknesses and impose on them what you would like to impose on them. Look at the very basic thing. It's nothing new. It's happening thousands of years ago. There was a time when if a baby girl is born, you kill and then you sink them somewhere else, right?
Or
We have
buried
seen it
alive.
buried alive. And today you bury alive. You give that pain 3 times.
For life. Yeah.
And her husband will not go to her. Every time she has pain, she will scream. And I don't know how that gentleman would enjoy her. I cannot believe that. So why men will not know, Jamila, I have a question to you as well. I'm a Bangladeshi, but I'm very fortunate that Bangladesh yet probably does not have anything, unless some migrated people are here. But I think as we are talking about the issue, I've forgotten your question, but it is very deep-rooted culture. When you come to the culture, look at the vehicles. Vehicle is the grandmother. Vehicle is the mother. Vehicle is the woman who does the circumcision or mutilation. These are the women who does harm to another young woman. So where do you work? Who do you transform? Who do you give information? And as I was listening, I think men may be more sensible to give information. Tell them, when we talk about pregnancy-related care or reproductive health-related care, we figure out that husband doesn't know much about her complications. If you inform the husband, then he participates. He participates in planning the delivery and all these things, other things. In this case also, and maybe Jamila can respond because she has more experience on the ground in the country. So when you talk to young boys, when you talk to young men, the husbands, and I was reviewing and I have not seen much about men's knowledge, men's action, and all these things. These are all women. People have been interviewing 15 to 49 who came from those countries, whose mother was born in those countries where it is being. See, it's again, the data have been collected, no matter CDC or Population Council or Bureau of Statistics, no matter what you try. Again, the women are asked. But it should be, more information should come from those people for whom this girl was mutilated. This girl was not mutilated for her grandmother, for her mother, for herself. She has been mutilated for another man. And ask them, do you enjoy that mutilation? What benefit do you get out of that mutilation? So I think because they are also the decision maker, they are the religious leaders, they are the male protector of that cultural practice. I think, as we are talking about the awareness, and I was just thinking as I was listening, where should you start your awareness? Going and talking to the grandmother, she's again another woman. She's a helpless woman. She has to be a servant of her culture because she loves that young girl so that she gets better married on time with a good man, with a good family. Otherwise, she will be rejected socially, right? Or again, I'm saying it correctly, because if you are not practicing your social practice, you will be somebody that your society will be rejecting you. So for the protection of the girl, they are doing harm to the girl. Look at the equation.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think we should involve men as well, equally, if not more, and tell them that it's you, why this woman is being mutilated so painfully. And it's not one-time pain. It's the pain for her rest of the life. Her childbirth is painful, her intercourse will be painful, her baby delivery will be painful because she does not have the passage to deliver the baby's head, shoulder, and the body. And there is more stillbirth. Baby will be there, uterus will be ruptured. She will die. Look at the consequences of that small activity and why God has given you the organ. Why somebody has to mutilate it? God could have given a mutilated organ, right? He did not, or she did not. She has given a body for normal function, for delivery, for intercourse, for all these things. And you are mutilating that one and creating an artificial thing. I don't know if these messages will convince anyone or not. Jamila's experience.
It makes great sense, and I
Yeah.
really agree with you. And in my experience, ordinary men, when they get the information, they become very much sensitive and get involvement. But what is missing is to do is the politicians and the religious leaders should be trained and show them, because they don't know anything about what's happening to the young girl's body.
Exactly, and it's done in a hidden, in a dark room, in the corner of the house, hush hush, nobody can talk. And I was reading somewhere that the girl will be kept in a dark room and she has to cry. She has to show that she has been in a painful condition for 2 weeks. She has to fill up the bucket with her tears. Look at all these things.
Even some of them are not allowed to cry. They say you have to be quiet and brave.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like delivery. You know, if you are pregnant, then you cannot shout because of your labor pain. You have to shut. You know, you put something in your mouth. You know, so it's when I look at women, they are always the subject of torture.
Yeah.
And enjoyed by people around them, no matter who is that person. I've seen that throughout my life. I know that, yeah, I'll wait for your next question, but I have also some more things to share. I know that some question came on the legislative part of it and all these things. So, Shimu, your question. Yeah.
No,
I become very emotional when I talk about
no,
it.
it's even myself. As I was doing the research, it was
Yeah,
that's
it's so
partly why
painful.
it took me so long, because
Yeah.
reading the experience of the women, it's traumatic. Like one very good thing came out of your points is that men need to be aware that they are
Yes.
also being deprived, that they are
Yes.
also not enjoying their conjugal life completely, because
Yeah.
it is not natural. It is so the more we involve men in the discussion and in the workshop, so that's one thing. And then I think the other aspect is when you go into most of these countries where FGM happens, you'll see that the people at the policy level, people who are making the law, they're all men. So
All
if
men, yes.
they have not gone through, and then there's so much taboo talking about it. I was reading that in India also, there's certain communities who do that. You can imagine in a culture like that, if you cannot even talk about the word sex is taboo. So how can you talk about your clitoris being taken off your body?
Yes. Yeah.
They don't even have the word. So can you maybe say something about that aspect, that how the legal system in a country like Jamila said that in Somalia it's still not illegal. So how do you think?
I don't know. I was reviewing the US legal system, what US has done. You know, US is kind of a pond of immigrant of all the countries of the whole world, and I lived there as well for some time. And when I looked at, and I also was in CDC, so I was also looking at CDC's role, what to do, and so when I look at US situation, US definitely expresses that they are very committed to end FGM cutting, okay? And that is definitely, and then they propose that no matter what type, 5 types, and types, or no matter what justification is there, it is a no-no. They will oppose to this mutilation. You have a natural organ situated in a natural way. You do not have right to mutilate. So is the violation of the right of a woman, of a child, of a girl, having had normal structure mutilated, destroyed, and kept it in a painful situation throughout the rest of her life. You know, one can understand that. And take a girl as a human being, not a dog or a cat, come on, or a goat. You castrate a goat because the goat will become bigger. She is not that kind of people. Those things to be, anyway, I mean, again, sorry about that. But anyway, the justification is that you protect the health and well-being of the girl and women. you advance their rights, you help them not to be abused, not to be mutilated. So these are the major justification for abandoning and for opposing the opposition law that US has. There are also like punishment for performing FGM cutting, or even sending them to another country, helping them to send another country to perform. And the fine is, it's a 5-year jail or fine or both to the performer and to the promoter of the performance. So I could not get the data that how many were arbitrated and how many were punished. That data is not available, but the law is there. Also, because it's a country where immigrants are coming, and if they see that the immigrants are taking their children to some other place for mutilated, for FGM cutting, they sometimes denied to come back to US, or they sometimes removed from US if they are identified. So those were part of the punishment for the immigrants, those who are helping to perform or still complying to perform FGM and cutting. So these are the US level policy. They also have a hot number we call, like 800 number, that anybody can call. Like if you know that somebody is going to be FGM and cutting will be performed, you can inform them. Or somebody has a problem, you can inform them. Somebody need help, then you can inform them as well. So there is, we call them as a hotline. So that kind of hotline is there in the US. When we look at CDC, it's their Division of Reproductive Health, and I was for 2 years as an EIS in the Division of Reproductive Health. At that time, we were not talking about FGM at all, and nobody talked about it. But their role is to estimate how many are doing, the behavioral aspect of it, the cultural aspect of it, as well as the health and psychological consequences of it. To what extent it happens, and how can you help health systems to treat them, to identify them, to diagnose them, and then help people to their well-being. So these are some of the activities that US is doing. They also do pilot studies to learn more about that. And I could not find whether they have incorporated men or not. I see 15 to 49 is such a pet pet topic to all of them, age to all of them. Men are mostly left out, whatever is the reason. But I think that if you ask me to develop a program to to increase awareness and make them sensitive to the pain that the woman go through, and say, okay, I do not approve this thing, then you start from where, you know. So it's across the board, everyone. It's not the grandmother only or the mother only or the father only, but father should be involved. In Bangladesh, when you talk about early marriage, you know, stopping early marriage, we go to the father. You know, there are some beautiful videos, 60 seconds. So the father becomes the advocate for the daughter, that no, I don't want her to get married. So when father does it, it makes much more sense. Mother is also a powerless being, human being, I don't know. She's a powerless person. She again looks up to somebody else to make decision in general. So that's why it's so important that men who are the decision maker, who takes decision across the board, should be informed, should be motivated, should be given more information. What is happening? They have no information at all. So that's very much important. I know WHO guideline, I was reading it. So they are talking about how much health expenditure is there. You know, 1.4 billion, and then more billion. And then if this continues, there will be more victims, and there will be more healthcare needs throughout your life, throughout the number of children you have, and all these things. So it's also the cost element. It's also the the family expenditure element in low resource countries. There are more out-of-pocket expenses, even for delivery, for you go to NCD, anything. So this is adding expenses to the woman's life, you know, to the family and all these things. So this is a very serious issue, and the more I think about it, I won't be able to sleep tonight. Jamila, I enjoyed talking to your talk. You're such a mature person and contributed so much. Enjoyed the way you talked. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
miss you. Thank you very much.
You too.
Yeah, and West African countries have moved ahead, but probably have not been able to, again, even they have bans. Bans don't work. You know, Sudan, again,
Yeah.
I think they're moving ahead, but I do not know whether they will be able to retain it or not.
But also, mostly the African countries, the government did not work on this subject. Mostly who works are the women and youth NGOs. And the challenges that they face are lack of resource and support from the international organizations. Sure. And always they just get a project, and then disappear, as you said. And this is one of the frustrations that those who are working, they have. And some of them, they give up. Similarly, in Sweden here, now forget about Africa, even here in Sweden, many organizations, immigrant organizations, competent, qualified, they have been existing many years, now disappear. No one, because of lack of resources and financial support. And only who runs mostly 99% in Sweden is the government authorities. And it's difficult for them because this is a new phenomenon, new thing, and they don't know how to handle it.
Sure. And it is a problem for all Western countries. Like in Canada, there is technically, although you do not call it honor crime all the time, but there is a law against murder. But still in this country, honor crimes happen. And we only get to see maybe 4 or 5 cases that come up to the news media. But most of the honor crimes happen behind the door. So behind the closed doors. So you don't, and the government, I have spoken with the police officers here. They're like, we are terrified to interfere because we will be accused of disrespecting their culture and interfering in cultural practices. So that is a huge issue. I think is you can have laws, you can have policies, but if you do not take the step towards like interfering when it's a human right abuse, I think that is what needs to happen. We need to really look at it that way, that it's against human rights, so you cannot do it, period. No matter where you come from, it is inhuman. And like I will ask something now to all of you in turn. One of the reasons that WCI has been working on these issues is because we want to work, we want to participate, but what is the most effective way to contribute? Let's say, like, would it, Haridapa just said that including men, Jamila referred to lack of resources, and Oregon said that there were like maybe more awareness, more like when they're being taken out of the country, if the legal authorities step in, that could be something where we can probably do lobbying. But yeah, sure, Halidapa, how can we contribute?
I'm smiling because when you say human rights, I think it is time again to define what is human. We do not have a definition of human. We have to restart defining human. And again, question, is a woman a human or something else? Oregon, you can talk here. Is a woman human? What characteristics should a human have, should have?
It's very interesting what you say, Jamila, and what you say, Halida. Thank you so much for your insight, and I fully join you. You know, FGM is not that different from other gender-based violence, because as you say, Shimuri, we live in patriarchal societies, and I put societies with an S, because unfortunately it's all over the globe. It's not, I mean, it's different type of violence, but at the end, at the finish, it's always the same thing. It's man wanted to take control over the woman.
Yeah.
And how do you take control over someone? You start with the body, because
Yes.
it's material, so it's easier. And
Yeah.
which part of the body? The genital, because it's the most private part. So when you attack the private part of someone, that's how you can directly make the most awful impact on someone.
Sure.
And that's why gender-based violence is always used when you want to apply violence towards a group of population. That's why rape is one of the most common arms used during wars. That's why FGM is performed. I mean, it's always the same thing. It's when you want to have control over someone else, you use their body and you use their private parts, because that's why it's the most hurtful. And that's why when you say we should involve men, yes, because it's not a woman issue. It's not a men issue either. It's a societal issues.
Yes.
And that's why it's very important to integrate everyone. That's why in UN and the different network working on FGM, they talk about that you need to have these gender transformative issues. There is not only ending FGM, but the root cause of that. The root cause of that is this imbalanced power dynamic between men and women.
Sure.
And that's why you need to bring men on the discussion. But by not playing the game of patriarchal structure, you need to involve them in the discussion, not because they hold the power, but because they are part of the society. Because if you go with them to end the practice, of course, it's short term. Maybe you will have result, but for the long term, you need also to challenge the imbalance that is underlying FGM. And it's, as you say, Jamila, it's so tricky, and sometimes it can be afraid, like, because it's so old, and it's like the power. I always say the silence is the most powerful weapon, the most dangerous thing. And by starting, all you can help is already like talking more about it. And also, as you say, as you did in your previous webinar, by giving the voice, by giving the space to the survivors and the one who wants to speak. Because of course, organization, they can speak, they can work on that, but we are on the second line. The front line, it's the survivors, and they need to be able to access and to speak. That's what I would say. So it's great to share.
I was just thinking, I know that you did mention of the agency. So how you create agency, you know, and 14-year girls agency or mother's agency, or so talk about agency. Yes, it is important, but where you start with and where you go from there. I know Jamila has some answer. Okay. This is great discussion. Thank you.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I want to just mention two things. In Sweden now, the government at different levels, before 90s and 20s, the government working on FGM alone as a subject. Mm-hmm. And it has made a very too much very I mix Swedish and English, sometimes hard to join. And it was very successful experience Sweden has during that time, and it has organized conferences. We initiated to establishment of the Stop FGM network, and also we initiated here in Göteborg. And the initiative also came from me directly, why we don't have an international day of FGM. Fortunately, we have that time, the Inter-African Committee chairperson was with us. And then we took together this initiative to Inter-African Committee to Addis Ababa. And that is the reason, first of all, that we got this International Day of GM. Now, the FGM issue came under the honor killings and domestic violence. And when I talked to the groups who practice, they said, look, Jamila, our community, I don't have any problem. We don't have any problem honor killing. And domestic violence, it's 1%. So we are not interested. So this is the question I'm trying to find an answer even in here. How is the best way to work on this? And holistic approach or as an issue. And those countries who practice FGM, they said, we don't have anything to do with the other issues. That's one thing. The other thing about your question, Shomo, what we can do. It depends where we want to do something. If it comes here in Sweden and Europe, the NGOs who become powerless, who cannot give the opportunity to deal with this issue, they know their communities, they know how to talk, they know how to bring together. If a government institution invites now a group of community to attend a meeting, they would never show up. But if it's NGO, they know how. And they give you more information. And they work and they know how to work to empower them. When it comes to Africa, the politicians, the religious leaders, as well as in Europe, also through the NGOs, the religious groups here. Because now we know the churches and the mosques, they get support and cooperation with their councils and authorities. So it is their duties to inform what their religion says about this subject. But who requires them? Who asks them?
Who asks them, yes, yeah.
Nobody. And those who are in charge, they isolated only themselves. And I know now it's not an issue only for Sweden. I know that now an organization in UK doing a research why immigrants are not engaged. What's the difficulties and the problems they have? And one of NGOs who was national NGO in Sweden, even they were complaining that even they wouldn't get invited for this International Day on FGM. And no one from all these countries has given an opportunity. And in Africa, we have to put the influence, the politicians. Some countries, they have law, but only in the papers, no implementation. How to emphasize the politicians to implement the laws that they establish. And the other countries who don't have the laws, how first of all get a law against FGM?
Yeah, but Jamila, when you talk about politicians, they need vote. So they are not going to touch sensitive issues or cultural sensitive topic. Because once they're, unless someone is very strong leadership and committed to the topic, he or she is not going to sacrifice vote by touching a very specific question to save those young girls' life or pain.
Yeah, so you are right. But
it's conflicts, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the politicians, they are looking for votes, but they are humans and they don't know nothing about this. I believe sensitization, and not giving up. But if we give up, then where else we go?
Sure, yeah. No, I agree that information has to be given to them, and the team of people who are doing advocacy should go to them and do that. I mean, we have done on other women's issues as well.
Yeah,
So
also there are
I
some
agree.
politicians
Yeah.
who are supporting, but they need a platform for the other politicians to be
Sure.
part on the issue. And
Sure.
we, the organizations should make sensitization meetings and also take the exchange of experiences. Some countries succeeded that they took their politicians to other countries who have made a tremendous development.
Yes.
Some
Yes.
religious leaders has been taken to the other countries who has made a lot of good things. So, but I believe the governments and the international organizations are not doing enough on this subject. I remember one time I asked one senior UN, I said, why this always now? You haven't done anything. And the organizations are not getting support. And she said, Jamila, I know you very well. I will tell you the truth today. Because I said, we are very frustrated for one project to another project. And she said, we can support building schools, hospitals, and we show the people. But changing attitudes, we cannot measure, and it will take years and years. So in order to get funds, we have to say, thousands of schools we build this year, and that 500 hospitals there and there.
Yes.
I would like to add something. Like in WCI is a comparatively new organization, and we have been on purpose from the very beginning. We wanted to work with issues that are taboo. Like we work with war rape survivors, and that's why like we really wanted to do this event on FGM for a long time. It just came to my mind that even we have been working without that much funding, really. Like we can have these events and then on our website, if we want to build as an area where we can get information from ActionAid, for example, or from IDIL, your organization, Jamila, and Halidape, you may contribute. So that those people who are looking, especially the most sensitive part is when they're facing the possibility of FGM. I heard a very interesting anecdote. I don't know if it's true or not. Some girls in UK, young girls who have heard their friends being taken away for forced marriages or honored marriages, and they don't have access to a cell phone or anything like that, they suggested their friends, hide a metal spoon inside your clothes when you are going through the airport, through the security. So when that alarm rings, the agents will come to you and they'll take you out away from your family to search you. Yes. And then you can tell them, okay, I am being taken away against my will. Yes. So I think these are very little, very simple solution. It might even sound naive, but it works. Like when you're that desperate to get out. So if you can share your resources, maybe we can put them up on our website. For example, we work in Sweden and in Bangladesh only so far, but we can have the most important services that girls and women can access in situations like when they're facing domestic violence. I may not be able to, we also run a portal called Women Chapter. That is how this whole idea of the organization came. I started writing there, and Shupriti Dhar, she is the editor. So I sometimes, even in our page there, I sometimes get messages asking for help. I am facing like domestic violence. Can you help me? I cannot physically do anything, but I can maybe give them the information that go to this organization. They'll help you. So maybe we can create something. We will. I think if you can also share your resources with us, and then we'll share our ideas, I think it can come to a very beautiful, at least, you know, we will do, we may not have much resources, but we'll start working from what we have. And when it comes to showing that measurement of success, that that, how do you say it, that very specific numbers and like it may add up. It may take some time for us to go there, but it has to start here, right?
Yeah.
So if Halidapa, you wanna finish today's discussion?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that, like you did this FGM talk involving 3 women. Why not you have another one in very celebration kind of a week time and bring men, maybe a woman and 2 men. What do you think, Jamila? What do you think, Oregon? That will be nice,
Yeah, very interesting. That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. And
Yeah.
let all men, no women, okay, let all men talk to themselves and see how they express, what are their expressions. That will may give us some direction, They may say something because they are talking on the screen, but something real will definitely come out, They will review the documents before they talk, and that will give them more information and more knowledge about what is happening globally, what is happening within their own community and other things, and maybe little mid-level, not very senior like me or Jamila, right? Bring in more younger people, and so that they have more time to do advocacy and more awareness building and other things. And that kind of a strategy may help. I mean, that will be a quick kind of a research to see what men, how they express, how they take it, how they make recommendations and what to do and all these things. That's one recommendation that I have. But definitely this is a long way to go, and this is an ongoing fight, I must say, fight for survival, fight for your own identity. And again, include women in the human definition. They look like they go out. As more you want to bring them in, they go out. They're pushed out from the definition.
Children even, like when you were saying, talking about agency. I can definitely tell about my culture in Bangladeshi culture. Children are not considered complete human beings. They don't have any right to privacy. They don't have any agency over what they want or what they do not want. I mean, of course, you're not gonna let them do whatever they want, but there has to be that whole concept that they're also complete human beings in themselves. And that is why probably we don't see a lot of work in childhood sexual abuse as well, because we don't consider them complete human beings. So children, women, whatever your gender is, you need to be considered in that whole idea of human being. I think that would be a way to start. So I would like to thank all of you for your time, your research, your valuable input, and definitely this is only the beginning of one discussion. It's a huge topic, and like you said, it's very important to WCI to work with this. And Jamila, if you can connect us with some men from your part of the world, because who live and work in Sweden, probably we can talk to them. And it will be a great way to go about it.
Same here to Oregon, if you want us to be
Oregon, yes. Anything you may
Sure.
suggest, we would look forward to it. So any last words from all of you?
No, I would like to thank you, Shumo, and your organization for taking this forward and then talking about it. I think this shows the leadership of the organization and your commitment to the issue of the women's lives and women's revival of their rights, whatever we talk about. And every time I talk about women, I feel kind of depressed that we have a long way to go. I mean, we make progress, but we don't make enough progress to be happy. It looks like a long struggle, but we have to keep on struggling. We have to keep on moving on. We have to keep on doing advocacy, shout, fight, whatever needed is do that. Congregate, make agency. This is an agency. 3 of us are doing. You have more people, and then the agents will talk about the life of a woman, that yes, women are human beings and they have all the right. They have right to enjoy everything in their life that other people are enjoying. I think that's the wish I would like to make today and forward.
Thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for an amazing session. So
Thank you.
until we meet again, this is me.
Thank you very much. Shumo, I don't hear you, yeah?
Yeah, Shumo is
I think
not feedback.
I like my conclusion now to say,
Sure.
actually the technology and social media and all this tech developed, and it helps a lot to take part of the advocacy and the awareness. Today I was watching one of the Somali TVs, satellite TV all around the world, a very hot debate and discussion on FGM, the Somali female gynecologist and mothers who believe, mothers who are against circumcisers, men, boys and girls everywhere. And they were debating and arguing about the issue. And this everywhere in Somalia, around the world, they are watching. So it is one thing that we can develop and continue that kind of platforms that people can get exchange and submit their message and make the change. So it is very important, that subject, so we can work further on this. And I really appreciate to participate and invite me on this forum. And I thank you very much, the participants and the organizers and the panelists. Thank you very much.
It's an honor having you here with us today. And also, Oregon, thank you. I mean, I know it's you are very busy and just the time.
No, but thank you so much for inviting me. It was actually the first time I was invited to a panel, so I was a bit stressed. But thank you. And I'm really happy. I was really happy to meet you, Halida and Jamila.
Yeah, also I know Gams, I work together and we invited before in Sweden, the lawyer and other members from Senegal.
Yeah.
Old members, and maybe, I don't know if you know them, but we have that networking long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I started working on sexual violence. I started with FGM and I was inspired by the women who were doing that job. And growing up, I thought I wanted to become the same and continue that fight. And thank you, Shumu, for creating these events, because, you know, one thing I've learned, that why I do that job is, as you say, Alida, sometimes it can seem so large and it's so old and everywhere in our society. So it can seem like a little bit too big for us, but it's not, because one thing I heard, if it can help at least one person, if there is today one person who watched this webinar and find the courage to say no, that is already enough.
Yes.
Because every step is important, because every individual is important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thanks to Supriti also. I see Supriti's beautiful picture. Supriti Dhar. Yeah, thank you. Shumu, it was excellent. Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been an honor having all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
If we can stay online for
Sure, I can stay. No problem. Yeah.